You're not going to believe who's here, kids.
Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Ryan O'Neill.
Political science professor emeritus, Dr. Robert Heineman. I think he goes in now as a dog therapy trainer.
I do what I can for all the animals in the world, Brian.
That's very kind of you, Dr. Heineman. Do you want to start out with Afghanistan?
Afghanistan? Well, I guess we could segue into that. I think it's really quite notable that the Trump people have been working, negotiating with the Taliban and seem to feel they have a general framework for some sort of withdrawal from Afghanistan. And everybody says there are details yet to be worked out, but what really is kind of interesting about this is that Mitch McConnell now apparently feels there's a need to raise some questions about whether we should do this. I find this consistently amazing how the inside the Beltway forces act to undercut ideas and efforts on the part of Trump, many of which are very good efforts on his part, but run contrary to the entrenched interests inside the Beltway. It's just amazing. And, of course, you do have the question, should we be pulling out of Afghanistan, and what happens if we do? But, of course, we've been there for 17 years or more, and it seems to me it's time for the Afghanis to either take up their arms and protect themselves or turn to somebody else. That's just crazy to continue to spend the money and the manpower over there for somebody who can't seem to get their act together. So in any case, I think that's a good move. What McConnell's problem is, I don't know, but there are all kinds of interests that could well be involved in terms of the Israelis, the Saudis, who may well not be too excited, too enthusiastic about us pulling out of Afghanistan and pulling out of Syria, which is the other thing that McConnell's raising questions about. And my view, and I think most Americans' views, are let's just get out of there. Now, it's true that the intelligence community here in the last few days has said that's a mistake, we shouldn't be doing that. But, again, the forces that are coming into play inside the Beltway, inside those agencies, I think Trump, once again, is disrupting the way they've been doing business.
Okay, on the topic of President Trump, did you see that Senator Schumer wants to sit down with President Trump and the intel chiefs?
No, I did not.
Senate Minority, this is from ABC, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is blasting President Trump for his extraordinarily inappropriate criticism of testimony from the nation's intelligence chiefs before Congress. And Schumer wants a sit-down where they explain to Trump that these criticisms of the intelligence community undermines public confidence in the government.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any question that Trump is undermining public confidence in the government. Now, whether he's undermining public confidence in our national security is another issue, but again, that does kind of support my view that Israeli interests may be at play here. I mean, Schumer obviously has got some concerns here, but again, it may be an effort on his part once again to just simply try to embarrass Trump. Now, it'd be great if Trump would keep his mouth shut, keep his Twitter finger stick in his ear or something instead of playing his Twitter.
Well, you mentioned Israel there. What did you mean by that? I
think Schumer is a big supporter of Israel.
But just confused because I thought Trump was a big supporter of Israel, and Trump.
I think he is. I think he is. Yeah.
So, are you saying there's somebody else in Israel that doesn't like Trump, and Schumer's doing this for them?
Well, I'm not sure how that plays. Just because Trump is a big supporter of Israel doesn't mean he's not going to put American interests first. And there may be things that we do that the Israelis aren't happy with. Well, it's our troops, our money, and our effort there, and I think Trump's looking at what's been going on there and just shaking his head. I mean, why are we there? How much longer can we be there? Again, this is just a hypothetical on the Israeli thing. I don't know what interests are coming into play there in that respect. But on the other hand, you can figure the intelligence community, the national security community, the military. There are all kinds of relationships that are built up there, and both in Syria and in Afghanistan. And by pulling out, we break those up. For example, in Afghanistan, we've been there 17 years, and plus you have a huge amount of contractors and such involved in there, both not so much in Syria, I would guess, at this point, but certainly in Afghanistan and in Iraq. But again, we're in pretty good shape in Iraq, fortunately. But in terms of the Kurds and all these other interests that come into play, again, the Kurds not much interest in Afghanistan, I would guess, but certainly in Syria. And these relationships have built up over a long time, and the intelligence community, I'm sure, has spent a lot of time putting together networks and conduits of information, and now all this is coming under threat. But again, Trump's view is, how long can we do this? It's not our place to be there. Part of the deal, as I understand it, with the Taliban is that they will promise or pledge not to provide a base for terrorist organizations to train and attack the United States. Now, I don't know how, can you trust the pledges of the Taliban? I'm not so sure. But on the other hand, they make the pledges, we take them at their word, and we get out of there. Then if they break their word, I suppose we can hit them with various other armaments. But on the other hand, do we care? I mean, in that sense. Now, obviously, we don't want them foisting and terrorism off on us, but I think the major goal is to get out of there.
Dr. Robert Heineman, I got a Syria question for you.
Oh, yeah?
National Public Radio broke a story on Thursday saying a U.S. court found the Syrian government liable in the 2012 death of American reporter Marie Colvin, ordering the Syrian government to pay $300 million in damages. Colvin was a reporter working in western Syria, and she was hit with gunfire, and she and other reporters and activists were wounded and killed, including a French photographer.
Right. When you serve papers on Assad, what do you think? How far do you think that's going to go? I mean,
yeah. What do you think?
Well, I mean, what court is this? Is it an American court?
U.S. court.
Yeah, I don't see where a U.S. court has jurisdiction to start with.
Syria's been ordered to pay millions, including $2.5 million to the family.
Yeah, well,
you think it's not going to happen?
I think not. No.
Speaking of things that aren't going to happen, all those Russians, they were accused of interfering with the election for all their, tweets and Twitter posts and things like that. Some of the conservatives say this is never going to happen because they're never going to leave Russia to.
No, yeah, the Russians, and I think that's another thing that makes the intelligence community very nervous. And I don't blame them there at all. The Russians are very nasty people in the whole espionage area, and as you know, in England now they've killed at least two former spies or intelligence people. The one guy, they stuck him with a tip of an umbrella, I think, as he was getting on a plane or something, and it was heavily laced. It killed him. I think it killed him right there. And then the other guy, they poisoned his tea or something of that sort. It took him quite a while to die. And now they laced some perfume bottle or something of the sort against a man and his daughter, and they both survived. Luckily, they lived only a few miles from a lab that was actually working on this kind of thing, but they threw the bottle away into one of the local garbage pits or dumps, and some poor woman picked it up because it still had perfume in it, and it killed her. She wasn't even aware what, and the hospital didn't know what was going on. And now the point is, the Brits know who these guys are. They've got pictures of them, they got their names and such, and they are in fact associated with the Russian government. So the idea that they can go out and just poison people, plus, you can go on with a number of other examples. Now, I don't know of any situation in the United States with anything like that has happened, but the point is they're really very nasty people, and Putin, I would think, pretty clearly has an idea what's going on here. So he's to trust him very far, I think, is not a good idea. And the intelligence community probably has all kinds of other information that maybe even Trump doesn't get that makes him worry about Putin. So this concern about Putin, I think, is legitimate. And of course, now they're trying to tie the Putin along with Xi Jinping of China, and that somehow there's going to be a Chinese-Russian alliance. And I have no doubt that they do some things together. But frankly, I think the Russians are a little suspicious of the Chinese. I think they've got a lot of empty space out there along the Chinese border, and the Chinese are kind of, I think, always kind of looking over that border and all that land out there and all the resources, actually. So I'm not certain that would be a very comfortable relationship. But again, our intelligence people and their ability to monitor and intercept communications and such undoubtedly have a lot of information on this.
Going to take a quick break, Doc. We're going to be back really soon.
Oh.
JC's Cafe has the lowest prices on pizza and wings in town. This Sunday only, large cheese pizzas start at $10.25. Sheet pizza starting at $19.99. Want chicken wings? They're only $8.25 a dozen. A bucket of 50 wings, only $32.95. Or a large pizza and 2 dozen wings, $25.49. JC's Cafe has special hours this Sunday, February 3rd, open till 6 p.m. Call your order into JC's Cafe at 607-324-4428. And don't forget their all-you-can-eat breakfast buffet is also this coming Sunday morning.
To Robert A. Heineman.
Yes.
Political science emeritus, dog therapist. He does all kinds of things.
I was another thought that occurred to me, which I think I got some of this off Tucker Carlson, but I'm not sure. The Chinese now have, well, first of all, China, I look at China as sort of just one big organism. I mean, in China, you can live your whole life never outside the earshot of someone else. So they're all, it's a big country, they got a huge population, and they're in many areas pretty compactly placed. But Tucker Carlson was talking about this lady who had a little, what is it called, Fitbit or something like that on her ankle or such.
Okay.
Working over in this country, Chinese woman, not doing anything nefarious, but it's reported back to the Chinese how many steps she took every day. So there's a monitor there in China that's, in terms of her wellness, in terms of her entitlement benefits and such, she has to do so many steps and keep herself healthy. And the point is, the Chinese can do that for everybody in China. I mean, it's amazing. And the question then becomes, how democratic is that? Well, a big element of democracy is the fact that individuals can wander off on their own and do what they want. A little less so today, I think, than years ago. But in China, they have the potential to monitor everybody. And whether they'll monitor everybody, but they certainly can monitor a lot of people. And I think that gets a little scary, actually, in terms of the power.
Yeah, you got that right.
The power that the government can exercise in that situation. So I don't know. Keep your eyes open there, Brian. Yeah.
My eyes are always open, Doc.
Yeah.
I'm here 24/7.
A little clouded occasionally, perhaps.
President Trump interviewed Ted Cruz's wife, Heidi, for a World Bank job.
Is that right?
You think that'll go anywhere?
Well, I don't know why it wouldn't. Why not?
The CNN, of course, brings up the criticisms that Trump made before.
Oh, yeah, well, that's Trump. I think...
Seems like he and Ted Cruz have kind of moved on.
Yeah, exactly. They had
that was campaign stuff, and now they've moved on, but CNN hasn't, maybe, I don't know.
Right. And if Cruz's wife fits the bill, I see nothing wrong with going ahead with it. The advantage of it is, of course, the Senate protects their own, and so I wouldn't think there'd be any serious trouble getting her approved.
Can we talk about Mike Bloomberg?
Sure.
Okay, do you take him seriously as a presidential candidate?
Yes.
What do you think of him coming out and criticizing... I
have
to correct myself. Bloomberg told your Howard Schultz there, the Starbucks CEO, to be quiet about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, because it was where I misspoke was it was Howard Schultz who came out against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah, right. No, Schultz is trying to run as an independent, trying to run as someone who is, I think, pretty liberal, but finds Cortez and her menagerie of followers really an embarrassment. And the Democrats, of course, are having all kinds of fits right now with the idea that this guy Schultz is going to cast himself as a third-party candidate. And Bloomberg's point is, you just can't win as a third-party candidate in this country, given all the election laws and things of that sort. I don't think that's true. I think, what's his name? What was the fellow with the big ears? Ross Perot. Yeah, I think he was on the ballot on all 50 states. What do
you think of him in retrospect?
I think he hurt Bush a lot.
Was his message good or just a distraction?
No, I think he did that to punish Bush. He was mad at H.W. Bush because it had something to do with the Iranian situation or something in the background there that Bush refused to give him support for. And he just did it to defeat him, and he did.
Perot also said that Bush sent CIA operatives in to mess up the Perot daughter's wedding.
Yeah, well...
The world-class daughter.
We're getting a little off the edge here, Brian.
That's what he said it.
Well, he may have said it, Brian.
World-class daughter.
But where that leaves us, I'm not sure. Could we get back into the 2000...
Yes, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Howard Schultz, Mike Bloomberg. Did any of these people pose a threat to Donald J. Trump in 2020?
Well, Cortez is a plus, and Schultz is a plus. That's what really irritates the Democrats, because I think they're really fearful that people who might, dissatisfied Republicans and Democrats who might vote against Trump would find Schultz an acceptable alternative. And I don't know, what kind of politician or what Schultz knows about politics. We'll just have to see. Obviously, he's a successful businessman of a liberal bent. And so we'll just have to see. I mean, some of these guys who think they're going to run for president just have no idea what's going on out in the world, and they turn out to be, frankly, an embarrassment. But if this guy is able to draw 8 or 10% of the vote, he's a problem for the Democrats.
Can we talk about Reid before we go?
Well, sure. Are we going somewhere, Brian?
Quoting Republican Congressman Tom Reid.
Oh, yes?
He came out full blast in the presser on Thursday morning in the 9 a.m. hour against the New York State Democrats, and he named Governor Andrew Cuomo as one of them, for the free college tuition for the illegals. Reid said there's no doubt in his mind that this is going to complicate and matters with the already expensive college education situation, and it's going to make a lot of people's tuition go up unnecessarily, and then freebies for the illegals. What do you make of that?
Well, I don't know what Cuomo is proposing there, whether he's proposing the illegals get state aid like any other New York State citizen would get. If he's suggesting that they should just get free tuition because they're illegals, I mean, I can't believe he's taken that position. But still, as Reid points out, that's expensive, providing TAP assistance and all kinds of other aid for needy students. And, of course, we also have the Excelsior program, where if you, what is it now, $125,000 I think a family can make, and you're entitled to free go to state school free. And that nobody knows where all this is going. Nobody's quite sure what effect that's having on private schools in this state, and what it's costing the state and how successful it is. I certainly hope it's more successful than Cuomo's Up New York program, which they spent billions of dollars on, and I think created 450 jobs or something like that.
Reid, at the end of the presser, a reporter who tends to be tiresome, and I won't name his name, but he tries to pick arguments with Reid, and this reporter said, "Don't you think it's hypocritical?" I couldn't believe the gall of this guy. I would never talk this way to Schumer or Gillibrand.
I'm sure you
I'm
wouldn't.
more conservative. I would never talk that way.
That's why I'm here.
Anyways,
yes.
He says, this reporter says to Reid, "Don't you think it's hypocritical that you're in the federal government criticizing the educational system when the federal government is, 80 gazillion dollars in debt with the deficit?" Now, would you say that?
I don't know. I must say, I'm watching a lot of what's going on these days, and the ability to bring in total irrelevancies is the one way that the left is able to offset the embarrassment of their position. So the other night I was watching some woman trying to defend this late-term. Well, she wasn't defending the late-term abortion thing. I mean, who was it? It
was the Tucker Carlson show, and she kept talking about the woman's right to choose.
Well, yeah, but Laura Ingraham was going to... No, I guess it was. Yes, Tucker Carlson.
And he said, "Give me a break."
Yeah, and she says, "Well, here you're concerned about murdering these little kids." She didn't say that, of course. I'm putting it in that way. And you're killing kids coming across the border in custody. You're letting them die. Now what, 4 or 5 kids have died in custody because most of them have been ill before they came across the border. That has nothing whatsoever to do with the atrocity of, killing.
Yeah, on the internet we call that trolling. Change the subject. And
yeah, exactly. Well, that's what they do.
Direction.
And that's what you were doing here with what this reporter is doing with Reid. We'll change the subject and talk about the federal deficit. We're not going to worry about the fact that New York State is taking taxpayer money to fund all the illegals who think they want to go to college. So it's something I think our listening audience is aware of this tactic. And I must say, I don't think Tucker Carlson handled it particularly well. And Laura Ingraham went nuts following that, I think, and I don't think she handled the Democrat there particularly well in that respect either. So these guys got to sharpen their rhetoric here a little bit.
Well, Doc, we're just about out of time. I want to thank you so much for stopping by.
Well, thank you, Brian, and I've got to go out and assure my little puppy that I still love her.